YouTube comments from a video titled, Where You Actually Want to Be When WW3 Starts. Part 1.
At Emin_Pichon wrote,
Why just send those idiot leaders that like to start a war in an octagon or boxing ring? Let them fight for their country. Civilians and soldiers don't need this shit.
At Afkingvillain wrote,
KKKKK. This American guy thinks that everybody will fight for their friends Americans. KKKKKKKKK. You as American is too confident. To me, when everything goes down will be easy to the nations to push USA out of the conversation. Then you will fuck the world with your bombs because you don't know how to lose.
At Afkingvillain wrote,
In Brazilian and we are not friends of U.S., nobody here would die for any American. For Mexico we fight. The rest of Central America too. U.S. no.
At Jessina Carlot 88 wrote,
There are billions of people in the world. We should be able to have our say in these wars that affect us all, instead of just a couple of leaders with bad intentions.
At Rob Myers 8948 wrote,
This is a Western narrative regarding Russia. I'm from Australia, and if you listen to any nations talk or Russian, and you understand the people Russia is not trying to take over the world or destroy anyone. If you don't understand what's behind Ukraine, fair enough, because the Western narratives love to paint a picture as Russia being evil to cover their own evil agendas.
At Akabi Chan 771 wrote,
You don't have to run anywhere. Just don't go to war. And try to convince as many people as you can on the internet to not go to war as well. War does not reward enough any common man all around the world. So why would you risk your life for politicians and billionaires?
At Dave 24 273 wrote,
Biggest mistakes these simulations make is they think they will use key targets like DC in America. A smart country would look for allies on the outskirts like NZ. They would nuke NZ to show their power and have minimum effect globally. Think Japan WII. The idea being to push others into submission as they realize you aren't bluffing. Logically, NZ would be a key target.
At Mary Martle 7308 wrote,
I used to work on a mountain in Colorado Springs that was right on top of NORAD. Thinking that would likely be a prime target, I liked being there because it meant we'd die quickly and wouldn't suffer the aftermath.
It Can't Fly _FPV wrote,
Chile is ranked just below the US in corruption. That probably isn't a very solid selling point looking at the amount of corruption coming to light in these here United States.
At Rollerblading with Ross wrote,
These countries claim they want to save Earth go green, making you feel bad for using gas to warm your home. Yet they travel the world on planes and use bombs to solve issues that create issues.
At Oldoger 5999 wrote,
There is one thing Greenlanders want to be aware of. If it comes to WW3, and for some reason the US cannot obtain Greenland as at least a team member and Greenland falls to our enemies, then you not have much longer to live. We want to allow our enemies to obtain such a juicy tidbit of resources. We'd simply erase your island from the face of the planet first.
At Colonel Radek 5956 wrote,
The only countries with a problem with America are either insanely leftist countries, which leftism is the bad guys pretty obviously established, or terrorist countries, which they are about the same tier. Furthermore, you guys don't seem to think past the explosion. Look at how much COVID affected the supply chain. What do you think worldwide nukes will do so you move to the middle of nowhere and survive the blast? Then starve 3 months later because nobody sent a shipment to your area cause it's all being used elsewhere.
The Tight Marin P2Q wrote,
The funniest thing is that in such a big war, You cannot reach any of these places just because planes won't fly because of rocket attacks, and anyway, any safe place will just be immediately overcrowded, and it won't be a nice place to survive, and finally, it will just survive those who will be lucky enough.
At Larry Kent 196 wrote,
Die from radiation poisoning. Not a good outcome. The first 8 days after they start, and stop dropping, you're really at risk. Everything outside is, and will be contaminated. Exposed, your organs shutting down. Sickness beyond belief, you're better off strapping on a good pair of shades. Strip down to your underwear, find a good chair, place it on the roof, and grab some beer or whiskey, throw a fuck party, and watch the show. The only Mark 1 will be leaving is my shadow on the ground. Let's not think this way and hope rational minds realize it would be the end of mankind and be reasonable enough to not do that. Omega Man, Charleston Heston. Crazy.
At Park Nasty 9400 wrote,
Fiji sounds like a nice place to die. That's just me, though, on a beautiful island relaxing, and you wouldn't feel anything. It would just be like closing your eyes, but forever.
Clean Like Ice wrote,
The best part about us Portuguese is that even being part of NATO, we rarely are considered an important target to hit. We're always in our corner, just watching from a distance, because we don't want, need or care about the war. We're just sitting and waiting for it to pass. Note, I am not telling you to come to Portugal. We're tiny, and resources would never be enough. Also, we are still a target while being part of NATO.
A 716 flat 4 wrote,
Let me spare you all the time. South America, far away from established militaries or oil reserves. That is far more likely to be a survivable area even after a nuclear war. It is a geography least likely to be targeted and is in the hemisphere least likely to have the worst of the fallout. Boot, you sacrifice a lot by leaving.
At Unknown RD8GQ wrote,
All those islands are classified nothing but sand until hand planted with plants and trees, mangroves and sugarcane, then animals places out there. If a single human knows of their existence, they get persecuted and executed.
At Unknown RD8GQ wrote,
How funny you pretend you ever had Alaska and or have America till this day. Every person will be pros used that knows for drones, helicopters, smartphones, laptops, computers, digital TVs, etc.
At Jail Dear MS wrote,
I don't understand why Westerners keep having the idea that China is ever going to invade Taiwan. You cannot invade your own country because it is ruled by a different political party. It's like saying Oregon invading Idaho because they have different party leadership. Ask the Taiwanese, no one wants to become a proxy state for the US and fight with China. There is no future for the Taiwanese if they do, and every Taiwanese resident knows it.
Pi May 36 wrote,
77 million voters in America made the unhinged reality represented hypothetically this video an actual probability. Great job, you geniuses, great job. 2 claps for you, average dumb and racist Americans.
At Christina McCarthy wrote,
You didn't take into account volcanoes and the earthquake zones. I would not be on an island in the Pacific. Your video is disingenuous. A nuclear winter means one needs to be underground after the earthquakes stop.
@D. Michael Breidick 1082 wrote,
A long war. 27 minutes, not so long, just so long to humanity. Nuclear winter, radioactive poisoning of the food chain. Pretty unlikely any place is survivable. Better we the people prevent our lying politicians and governments from killing all of us.
Kai KD9QY wrote,
If Russia or China is pushing forward, then no country is safe cause they need high manpower and countries have men, and they probably something similar to ancient Mongolian rules of war. Men go west front lines, and women and children go east Mongolia to be slaves or pleasure.
At Marlena Pandin 3930 wrote,
No safe place. There would be so much radiation circling that everyone still alive most likely would still die. Fish and all agriculture would also be contaminated by radiation.
At Winters 1411 wrote,
Correction, South Africa. We have power outages like my area every few days for lasting 1 to 5 days, and many times 19 days in a month power out. And that's not even Eskom load shedding.
At Keith Johnson 839 wrote,
That's a big if WW3 ever happens. Gloom and doom has been going on since the 1950s. It's not gonna happen. The whole world would end. Doesn't matter where you are, it'll catch up to you when you can't farm and escape fallout. There's only so many cans of food and MREs you can eat before it runs out and water can't be replaced.
At Daniel Mahan 4993 wrote,
I'm from the US, so I might be biased, but I fear the internal division in our country more than a nuclear holocaust. With how massive and technology advance our military defense and offense are, it's hard to imagine the US not knowing if anything has been launched towards us and having adequate amount of time and resources to stop it ever coming towards us. Mexico, Canada, Cuba, and Central America will most likely be safe also because we wouldn't want radiation spilling over to our side.
At Carlos Bento 8067 wrote,
Why would you want to get away to the Pacific when most of the fighting will be in that area? Why wouldn't you go to mid-Atlantic island like St. Michael in the Azores?
At Romeo Margot Pikender 1281 wrote,
There will not be a WW3 unless China decides to act completely irrationally. The U.S. military has complete conventional and nuclear supremacy. If you add U.S. treaty allies, the asymmetry becomes even more blatant. The PLA cannot take Taiwan by force without risking the destruction of the CCP as a consequence, and she knows this. The odds are also getting worse for them as time goes on.
At Bunanyori 6324 wrote,
The real question is, do you really want to linger? Because short of being out of range of most of the nuclear pollution, unless you have a water source, a lot of local green, and a bunker with a lifetime supply of canned goods, they say it's all over in under 2 hours. With luck, I'm asleep in the middle of the night and never experience the end to begin with.
At Laura Drieg 603 wrote,
At this point, there is a greater chance that WW2 will be fought with drones because they are cheaper to make and can be mass-produced. As technology improves, so does missile defense will become more of a deterrent to their use.
At Full Perspective wrote,
You seem to miss the entire point. It is not about getting away from all great powers. It is about getting away from all evil powers. One evil power is still much worse than 100 good powers, so if you want to find out where to be when WW3 starts, then you want one of two things. 1. Be as far away from bad people as possible. 2. Be as far away from danger and people as possible. I couldn't care less, as if we are talking great powers or not. What matters is what those powers wants to do.
At Jenny Zena Tavares wrote,
Luckily, my mom is 4 blocks from me, and our parish 5. I'd grab her and go to the church. Can't think of a better place to die. BTW, I already discussed this with her and she agrees.
At Boson 2049 wrote,
The safest place during World War III is the United States, because no country would ever be able to invade the United States when we have more guns than we do people. and no foreign airplane would make it over American soil.
At Joseph_Dread wrote,
South Africa is beautiful, sadly ruined by the locals, many of whom are aggressive, overly entitled, and have an issue with white farmers especially. Crime rate is huge, murder rate high, too mostly committed by the locals. I'd be avoiding RSA myself. And Africa as a whole.
At Gallup for Me wrote,
Remember that scene in Terminator when Sarah was watching the kids on the playground and saw it coming? Nobody will have time to react and will be vaporized. A scientist commented that scene was the most accurate portrayal of a nuclear blast he had ever seen. Always be ready to meet Jesus.
At Robert U3J6X wrote,
I'm going to be living in a tiny, tropical, neutral country. In a small town in the mountain jungles. Not a target for anyone. And the town is self-sufficient.
At Royal Stephen wrote,
Cape Town is top 10 highest crime rate cities. I would pick Chile, Iceland, or Canary Islands maybe, but they don't like too many people to live there. You have to remain independent on good supplies, on faraway islands. And if the water gets polluted, you have none to drink. Also, hurricanes or tsunamis are more common around islands. You are most safe at the most remote island, Pitcairn, but again, it takes days for supplies to arrive.
At Joe Guviabaros 1105 wrote,
Stopped watching when the author claimed the sea from Japan to Indonesia was America's first line of defense. When your first line of defense is someone else's backyard, you're deep not the good guys.
At Corey De Beer 799 wrote,
Cape Town is safe, huh? Until you get to Khayelitsha, Nyanga, Gugulethu, or Manenberg. When you get to those places, Cape Town becomes a lot less safe very quickly.
At Daryl Lex Price wrote,
If I had the power, I would just have to nuke the horrible American accent commentators like the one doing this. Sorry, but I would just have to start WW3.
At Uthale_Kiliania wrote,
Imagine building a bunker in some ocean trench around a small volcano. You'd have endless supply of food and energy, but the investment to deal with the salt and pressure problems would be enormous.
At White-haired WOKE Bastards wrote,
This is totally stupid. As if WW3 happens. There's not a single place on Earth that will be safe. Don't buy into this bullshit. Nuclear fallout doesn't pick where it will land. It will be worldwide. Fact.
At Godfish 1120 wrote,
Can we please stop pretending Russia is a threat? They have shot their load on Ukraine, and it turns out they can't even do that. They are far from the threat that Stalin was.
And Moonlight Knight wrote,
At 1926, if USA and Russia/China were to ever go to war, Greenland will be one of the first places that gets attacked because of the defenses that are set up here. Wouldn't want to be in Greenland.
And Moonlight Knight wrote,
At 3:15 watt. Kava is nothing like alcohol. It's like, maybe the feeling you get 30 mins after taking one sip of some wine. If that, maybe it's microdosing some Delta 8 or something. Source, I used to drink kava daily, like a morning kava drink.
At Keptinkos 6384 wrote,
This makes the assumption that Russia's arsenal still works, and like the rest of its military, is a fraud, and that anyone could sustain operations for any length of time. Time before going broke, billions will disappear. In days, and bankruptcy will halt operations. And you're assuming the CCP can actually project real power across the Pacific for any length of time, and maintain that force too. WWAI may end with nukes or it may not, as the protagonists burn out like fireworks.
At Woodcraft 66 wrote,
Unless you want to be trapped in the middle of a living hell trying to survive in a fourth world situation, the best place to be is at ground zero.
M. Snoner wrote,
Only within bunkers. With tunnel networks, you're safe from a nuclear winter. But then you also need to have enough supplies to hold out for a while, if not for years. Also, that requires scientific labs to make research to overcome the difficulties, as else you cannot clean the mess up of the war.
at Baldyman64 wrote,
Weird that sea level rise is a concern in Greenland, but not in Vanuatu. I confess that I stopped watching at South Africa. There is already a low-key genocide against whites going on, and if resources got tighter as a result of a global conflict.
at Drew WZ5S wrote,
I will be up in the Rockies, high up and away from civilization, and in comfort in my underground home with family and a few friends. By the way, the U.S. has pissed off its allies and has none left except for maybe Hungary. The whole world is pissed at Trump and the way the U.S. is now. Not much hope for the U.S. when Canada's newest ally China bombs the hell out of those Yanks.
at DaVinci368 wrote,
The U.S. and its allies. What allies? It has now alienated and threatened virtually all of its allies, including Canada, who the U.S. depends on for many of its most fundamental resource and financial stability. In 2026, the U.S. has no allies.
at Halnovemela 9698 wrote,
The whole video narrative, though informative, has saved itself from being labeled as naive at the last moment, few words before the end. As if WW3 goes nuclear in a nuclear winter, you wouldn't be safe no matter how remote a place you could find.
at Stormcraker 3381 wrote,
I was gonna write a comment, but I think a lot of other people wrote the same comment that I would have. If there's a World War III, why are you gonna live in a post-apocalyptic world where everybody's gonna be scavenging for food for shelter? There's probably going to be factions instead of governments, and either you're gonna be lucky enough to be in a faction, or you're gonna be just wiped out by private militias. I agree with the comment. I would rather be at ground zero if there was a World War III. The world would never be the same.
at Monica Familit 855 wrote,
I'm not buying Australia being a combatant. Not entirely convinced of the certainty of China's involvement either. Roughly from age 4 to 40, I was panic-stricken that war would break out. Really hoping the war will not get messy, hoping it won't ever start.
at Quantum Mechanized 2975 wrote,
I don't believe a mighty power would waste their time collecting timber from halfway around the world. It's not effective energy source, not very useful for weapons production, not even required in fact, where plastics could replace effectively. As for untapped minerals, years of planning and infrastructure make this implausible. Though controlling the land for future tapping is plausible, though there are better alternatives in the short term, first is facing adversaries foremost.
at Column 578 wrote,
After occupying Denmark in 1940, Nazi Germany aimed to control Greenland, to establish weather stations, secure cryolite supplies, and create air bases to threaten North America. However, the U.S. preemptively took control of Greenland in 1941 to protect it, thwarting German plans to conquer the Arctic territory. This is why knowing history is so important.
at user SC9TW7GU6I wrote,
There are landmarks, the land you were all born, that define a realm at law by time through space and geographical location, using celestial navigation, sunrise and sunset. Your foundations at law. Both God and realms exist in law as a matter of fact. In both temporal and spiritual law. King v. Casement 1917, Treason Against the Realm.
At user SC9TW7GU6 I wrote.
First, you have to learn how they changed you and your families to gain control of your countries. All you have to do is learn about the birth certificate contract the government puts on you when you are babies. We could have this communist crap stopped in a week. Come and learn, it's called the safeâ que vi trust. Also known as the Foreign Citus Trust. It's Roman Catholic in origin, and their corporations are claiming your children as dead commercial entities, legal persons. Wards of their commercial state govern ments as their chattel property. Look up joinder under personage. Look up the unum sanctum. Do some research of your own. Your families and country are counting on you. They converted you all from the realm of God and man into the realm of corporations and contracts as legal persons. It all starts and ends with the birth certificate contract. You all need to formally denounce it and UN citizenship and return your standing and allegiance back to the land of the living as men and women, where your rights and authority in law are. It's a maxim of law that the dead cannot rule over the living. So the government contracts you to be legally dead. Corpsorations, you have a curial right to be the sons of your fathers and the daughters of your mothers. Not persons/citizens and residents, which are dead foreign visitors in law with no inherent rights. King v. Casement 1917, Treason Against the Realm. Look up legal person name. Nom de guerre, name of war. All of your government documents are fraudulent in law. Birth certificate and everything created from it. All national government corporations are colluding in concealing these facts, which amount to war crimes on all of your families worldwide. It's called executor de sun tort. Legal is the undoing of God's law. Encyclopedia Britannica, Peel, 9th edition. Civil law capitis corpus juris civilis equals Roman Catholicism. Capitis diminutio, the head of your families should be collecting up all legal documents and handing them in at your local courthouse. If you knew how important this is, you would be lined up 10 blocks from the courthouse.
Adasmekin 2696 wrote.
I'm surprised it didn't mention Australia. We are so far from everything yet. We have all sorts of mineral, and we have rice, grains, beef, sheep, Reaseum. We had no dangers in World War I or II.
At Sparrow Wren 8673 wrote.
It is really sad that someone even had to make a video like this. Ah, well, America was never great again and never will be. Too much propaganda, crooked poi tick Ian/Mason/Illuminati/elites. They want everything so we can have nothing, and they think we will be happy. Robots taking over. Enjoy yourself until the bomb drops.
At Soulstar 2401 wrote.
Actually, the Asian part of Russia, the Siberian tundra, would be one of the safest places. Almost no population, a lot of resources, and a lot of cheap housing for now.
At Bad Battleaxe 5832 wrote.
Or instead of
falling into Thucydides' trap, the two major powers can learn to work together. One side can keep the East in check, the other can keep the West in check. It would also help to build a relationship if both powers collaborated together on massive projects like exploring space, where there is literally infinite resources for both superpowers.
At Yais 2112 wrote,
Colonize much? The arrogance of assuming you can plan your comfortable, well-fed survival by just showing up and what? Seizing land? This is so disgusting, and your Gee Whiz voice sounds like a Disney tour guide. CIH.
Phage wrote,
South African Afrikaner here. Well, our government is aligned with the East and BRICS, but they don't speak for us. They're a dictatorship run by terrorists and criminals, funded by the East, that's why they're pals. South Africa has also been under massive social unrest and social problems since the early 1900s, and our current government is just making it worse. Expect genocides and many horrible stuff after the West doesn't hold them accountable anymore.
At Lizzer 6085 wrote,
20 we wear hoodies minus 30 C is nothing new, and unfortunately we deal with a lot of smoke in the air. Also think a lot has changed in the last 6 months since Trump went into Venezuela.
At Orithia to Caterphages wrote,
Piss off your channel and its fascist US propaganda. Who is pushing towards wars and conflicts almost everywhere? Not China, not Iran, not the EU. No, sir, it is the USA, and even more so since it has a white supremacist pedocriminal ruler, Mr. Trump and his Christo-fascist cabal. It is them who are pushing the world towards a world war. And your hiding in an island mentality is idiocy when atomic radiation can cross borders in this escape. Instead of impeached by diplomacy viewpoint is aligned with the Trump regime and the TESCREAL, elitists who plunge the world every day in more poverty only for their own financial profit while planning to escape to Mars, conscious that they risk to also provoke uprisings. Your USA-backed channel finds it cool to prepare minds for WW3. You are not useful. Flag me for writing the CIA, I won't ever come back to your rotten commodity culture-led country where shooting its own citizen for no reason has become commonplace.
At Larry_Cole wrote,
Epic wolst OF time there AR Anishnukes TO kill everything ON earth multiple times over those that serve a world wish thee had not. Ian Diokentai N. Potential serve a wall point. B bottom OFE ocean for a FEW thousand years.
At Maramvellas wrote,
all of us were far more prepared in W1 and WW2 than we are right now, and we had far more survival skills. Countries were much more independent in terms of food. I live in forests of mostly fruits, coconut, mango tressa, papaya, bananas, etc. in Brazil. I know we have food here that can last for many years if people from the city do not invade us. Here in Bahia, they have a type of land where everything grows in very low density of people. Europe, it's not like that to many people, and the land, it's not so good. Also here, a lot of people still have survival skills and know how to plant. Not in Europe, USA are most countries. South America seems to be the safest area to be because the land can still feed a lot of people fast, and the people still know how to do plant.
At Lynn Clark 6265 wrote,
if it's my country, ground zero. If not, as far away as possible and try to survive the next couple of years, and then decide whether to use my handy stockpile of prescriptions. A whole pack or two of blood pressure tabs should finish me off.
At Lynn Clark 6265 wrote,
why is the US shown as being safe in the map? No one is safe anyway. Nuclear winter doesn't just stay over the bombed country. It would be like after a large volcanic eruption, like the Iceland eruption, years ago. The dust spread eventually all around the world, giving us some spectacular sunsets.
At Gavin Hodge 2290 wrote,
my mom was in London during WW2. They had plenty of fish and potatoes, but still about stat-vad to death.
You can't eat nothing but fish all the time. She had to supplement with a lot of vitamins, but still her health got ruined from it and died much earlier than she should have. Shit, you couldn't get through Central and South America for the cartels getting ya? Best two stick. Put it away from high value military targets and population centers chocked full of predators.
At Anavergazova 7809 wrote,
Punta Arenas is not the southernmost city. Ushuaia is. BTW. If anyone comes to say that the southernmost city nowadays is Puerto Williams, don't forget the fact it was upgraded to be called a city only in 2019. However, it doesn't seem to be as urban as Ushuaia is.
At Duncankern Cross wrote,
Nuclear winter is a busted hypothesis. The idea was that burning cities would put soot up into the upper atmosphere where it would take years to come down. We have tested that Kuwaiti oil fires and massive wildfires on every continent except Antarctica. Turns out the soot does not get that high volcanoes do blow crap up that. High and do change the climate. But we are talking millions of times as much as a mere full-scale nuclear war.
At LevelQueb 455 wrote,
Hey, obviously I'm in the safe. We were forgotten. No mention of Madeira in the video. Nothing to see there. Please proceed equal deed between the Azores and the Canaries, closer to Africa and a bit higher north. Although it belongs to Portugal, Madeira is a mostly autonomous island. Breathtaking nature, no active volcanoes, vibrant city, and touristic life on the south coast. Highly prepared for digital nomads with high-end IT living working apartments, and lovely little villages for rural life way up in the hills. On top of that excellent health system, like in the motherland Portugal, no military base, and one of the shortest and most dangerous airport runways in the world, requiring an extra license to land here. Also, the island is often unapproachable due to rough seas and high winds, which most likely will exacerbate in the coming years due to the ongoing climate breakdown. But according to all current climate models, this island will not experience extreme climate shifts, rather moderate but not drastic changes as opposed to the mainlands. Downside is the surging far-right influence, as in all other EU countries right now. If we get this straight this election in February 2026 and get rid of the fascist candidate in the presidential election, then we will be good. Fingers crossed.
At Bond Collapse 123 wrote,
Economic war will happen because war is in human nature, but I think kinetic war between the top 4 or 5 superpowers is behind us, I hope.
At Perpetual Man 22 wrote,
Too late, we be commenced already past least 3 years now. It is only the end, and the extent humans decide to destroy all or just some pieces of the planet Earth.
At Raymond's wrote,
I think most of South America would be safe if WW3 broke out, since they're generally neutral, with some leaning toward China and others toward the US. They're not really investing in large-scale weapons, and they haven't done anything in the past to provoke major powers. In fact, it's often been the opposite, with the US frequently interfering there, so they might remain safe from both China and Russia.
At Bobright 3869 wrote,
In World War III, it's not going to be a battle of ships. The nukes are going to eliminating the cities and bases. Once the nukes are finished, there won't be much left.
Quokadude wrote,
This is such BS. If WW3 starts, and it is highly likely that nuclear weapons get used, then no place in the Northern Hemisphere will be safe and very little around the equator. The safest place for prolonged existence is Madagascar, New Zealand's South Island being second safest. New Zealand has a reputation for not even being on a lot of maps, so that could be its saving grace. Third safest is Central Australia, somewhere well and truly in the bush away from any US bases. Down south in South America, i.e. Uruguay, and mid to southern Africa, i.e. Zimbabwe are great options, just not South Africa itself. Oh, and yeah, if there's enough bombs to create a nuclear winter, you might as well just forget it.
At Belvavos Drakenfer 4160 wrote,
WW3 goes like this: China enters the war, all countries take a side. USA pull out its anti-gravity air power and wins without an effort and makes everyone surrender unconditionally, and USA expands ITS empire WW3 over.
DBZZ5N wrote,
Why are you saying that China is the problem? The country that will trigger the war is the United States of America. It has almost 800 military installations around the world and interfered in nearly 100 countries since WW2. If the US were defeated, we would have world peace.
At Freedom Got Cancelled wrote,
100% nuclear winter. Even in a small exchange, egg 20 nukes between, say, India and Pakistan, there would be a catastrophic effect on climate, and hundreds of millions all around the world would die. But in a serious exchange between the superpowers, the sun would be blotted out for years, and we would all be toast. Reagan and Gorbachev realized this in 1989 and stepped back from the brink. There might be a few tardigrades that would make it, but that's about it. It would be worse than the extinction event that killed the dinosaurs.
At Jennifer 7020 wrote,
You are assuming a war between the USA and China. Yeah, that might turn out to be the USA plus Russia against NATO and China. Nobody would want to fight for Greenland. Should we trust anything in this video? You wouldn't want to go to Venezuela because of Maduro. Oh boy, Donald Trump has certainly made this old world a less predictable place.
At NodeYourMonkey 2134 wrote,
The safest place in the world is / is wherever / it is not being or been. / invaded by fucking egotistical Americans / and there ain't a hell ofalot of the non-E variety in existence.
At Suman Shizzles 6951 wrote,
Clickbait title: Nobody will survive. Cockroaches just might make it. All other life will be made to disappear. It is MED for a reason, and those reasons still stand today.
At Ratchulg 785 wrote,
The reality is that we will be started by the Western nations, China, Russia, and Iran have been clear they just want to trade. Whereas NATO nations and their politicians have been agitating for war since the early 2010s. And BTW, Russia's military, is the most advanced, and their naval vessels, especially their nuclear subs and icebreakers, are top-rate, high-tech machines. 1991 was a long time ago. Ukraine hasn't destroyed anything of note, and without NATO assistance, wouldn't have lasted 3 days.
At Randar 55 wrote,
Don't be sleeping on the Maori. No one wants to attempt a physical landing in a country with Maori. One of the few indigenous populations globally to almost immediately force a treaty on a colonizing force. And today's Maori are no less intimidating.
At OmegaReds 03 wrote,
This is a Bias B video. Anyone with any common sense knows that the most warlike nation on the planet is the United States, and they are the only ones starting wars. I prefer truth over blind allegiance. China won't be starting any wars, nor North Korea or Russia leaving the most evil countries on the planet, the USA and Israel.
At Pisces 73 wrote,
Fiji has multiple Chinese-owned ports. Australia dropped the ball allowing China
to develop in Fiji under the guise of socio-economic development when it's just another Chinese military base.
At Clarence, FW7WR wrote,
No one will survive WW3, get rid of the orange jockas and save our planet. Because he will be the cause of the end of life as we know it. It's only a matter of time.
At Iran Hissong 5674 wrote,
We are dead and Trump as a nuclear ballroom. We so screwed up letting the rich take over lol. We should not let anyone have power anymore. We should say no by thank you start again.
At Demon 1649 wrote,
Why are you a sick INTHE head? Live your fucking life. That is what you were born for. I'll stay in my house, looking at the picture albums of my partner, my wife, for the last time. Death is nothing once you've lost your one reason to live.
At Jodia's Sons Robin Jesus Toomey wrote,
Let's hope this video is still on YouTube after a few decades, and we haven't had anything close to any of this from happening yet. Or, waiting still and haven't seen anything escalate since this first appeared here in the mid-2020s.
At LeGrant 2540 wrote,
My grandma, born in 1912, told me about how, when she very young, they were terrified that the end of the world was upon them. World War I was scary, but my great-grandmother carried on baking pies. When my grandma asked her about her confidence as to why, she said she could take control anything, and if it were really happening, would I be baking pies? My mother was born in 1940 and was afraid of stories that came back from my uncles who survived WW2, and she too was scared, and her grandmother repeated the same response about the pies. I know I'm not being too poetic, but think about all the wars, COVID, natural disasters, Y2K. The list goes on and on. And yet, here we are in 2026. I put it in God's hands, but even if you don't believe, what's true is the lack of control over the situation. Chill and enjoy today. Love like it's our last day and be kind, you know the platitudes. I'm not worrying about it. If it happens, my faith tells me it's not the end, because you can't destroy energy. Good luck, and God bless.
At Lolo Albasha 233 wrote,
In case of WW3, I would go back to Syria, my country of origin. Why? BQ's it a three-world country that's developed enormous resilience during 14 years of war. It's a food self-sufficient country and has Mediterranean weather. People there know how to survive during wars, unlike developed world countries.
The Sleepy wrote,
ESCOM for South Africa. It's cool to see my city being mentioned. Not so cool that our crime rate is abysmally high. I physically cringe watching videos of Americans casually jogging with headphones on. You'd be robbed so quickly you'd probably have to do a shoeless walk of shame home. Also, I never appreciated just how good our climate is until I was in another country, sweating profusely and struggling so hard to breathe Saudi Arabia, you wanker.
At Step Chicken 3238 wrote,
What about fallout and radioactivity carried around the world? Contaminated food and water everywhere. The only reason there'd be a WW is because the psychotic Washington elites would have nothing to live for if they lose world power. They'd destroy everything rather than face that.
Crystalla Cacris wrote,
Bunkers are your safest bets, guys. Build an underground bunker in your home. Don't tell anyone, and keep it for your family only. It could also be a possible civil war.